Actually, it's interesting. Sounds rather sort of bizarre, but I did go to Diana's coffin the day after I'd written it.
The innocence about her, you just thought, wow, this girl is knockout.
In a moment that has stunned royal watchers worldwide, Charles Spencer, the 9th Earl Spencer, and beloved brother of the late Princess Diana, has finally addressed the persistent rumors that have circulated for decades about his sister's life and death. At a commemorative event marking what would have been Diana's milestone birthday, the normally composed Earl broke down in tears before making revelations that threatened to reshape our understanding of modern royal history. This extraordinary moment of vulnerability and truth-telling has sent shockwaves through monarchist circles and beyond, reopening wounds many thought had finally begun to heal. The significance of this moment cannot be overstated. For nearly 3 decades, Earl Spencer has been the stalwart guardian of his sister's legacy, famously promising at her funeral to ensure that her blood family would guide her sons so that their souls are not simply immersed by duty and tradition, but can sing openly. His carefully measured public statements about Diana have always balanced familial loyalty with appropriate discretion. Until now, that is. Why now? Why at 60? Those close to the Earl suggest that reaching this milestone birthday, an age Diana herself never reached, prompted a profound reassessment of family obligations and historical truth. Charles has carried these burdens silently for decades, reveals one longtime family associate. There comes a point when the weight of unspoken truths becomes unbearable, particularly as the principals in this story age and the historical record begins to solidify. The revelations center on the final years of Diana's life and the circumstances surrounding her tragic death in Paris. According to Earl Spencer, the level of establishment resistance to Diana's independent path was far greater than the public has ever been told. What my sister faced wasn't simply media harassment or palace disapproval, he reportedly stated through tears. There was a coordinated effort to control her narrative, her movements, and ultimately her legacy that went beyond what anyone has acknowledged publicly. Most explosively, the Earl has apparently confirmed long-whispered rumors about unusual surveillance in the weeks before Diana's fatal accident. While stopping short of endorsing conspiracy theories about deliberate harm, Spencer described a pattern of monitoring and interference that deeply troubled Diana in her final months. She called me from secure lines, changed her plans constantly, and expressed fears that seemed paranoid at the time, he revealed. I regret more than I can express that I didn't take those fears more seriously. This revelation cast new light on Spencer's famous funeral oration, particularly his pointed reference to Diana being hunted. What many interpreted as grief-stricken hyperbole about press intrusion may have had more specific and concerning foundations. Charles has carried the guilt of not acting on Diana's concerns for 27 years, says someone familiar with the family. This disclosure is as much personal unburdening as it is historical clarification. For Princes William and Harry, their uncle's disclosures create complex new emotional territory to navigate. Both princes have spent decades processing their mother's death and constructing their own understanding of her life and legacy. Spencer's revelations potentially disrupt those hard-won narratives with new information about the forces that shaped Diana's final years. Royal sources suggest William was made aware of his uncle's intentions before the public statement, while Harry's prior knowledge remains unclear. The different positions the brothers now occupy, one at the heart of the institution, one removed from it, create inevitably different contexts for absorbing these revelations about their mother and the establishment's treatment of her. The Earl's relationship with his nephews has reportedly fluctuated over the years. Initially cast as a potential guardian figure following Diana's death, Spencer's role became more peripheral as the princes grew into adulthood within the royal framework. Recent years have seen apparent warming, particularly with Harry following his step back from royal duties. These new revelations may further complicate these relationships, particularly with William, whose future role requires careful management of institutional relationships. For King Charles and the palace, this development represents a significant challenge. The monarchy has worked diligently to move beyond the turbulent Diana years, gradually rehabilitating Camilla's public image and establishing a new royal narrative focused on stability and continuity. Spencer's emotional disclosures threaten to reopen questions many in the palace had hoped were settled. The timing is particularly sensitive given recent royal health challenges and the reduced number of working royals. A resurgence of public interest in Diana's treatment potentially undermines confidence in the institution at a vulnerable moment. Palace sources indicate that the response strategy will focus on respectful acknowledgement without engagement with specific claims, emphasizing the significant passage of time since these events. Public reaction has predictably divided along already established lines. For those who have always maintained skepticism about the official narrative of Diana's death, Spencer's revelations feel like vindication after years of being dismissed as conspiracy theorists. For others, his disclosures seem unnecessarily painful, reopening of historical wounds without clear purpose or resolution. Social media has exploded with renewed discussion of Diana's final years, with younger generations discovering or re-examining this history through the lens of Spencer's emotional testimony. The Spencer family's historical standing and Charles's reputation for measured public statements give these revelations a credibility that more sensationalist claims have lacked. What makes the Earl's disclosure particularly powerful is his historical reluctance to speak publicly about these matters. Unlike others in Diana's circle who quickly monetized their connections through books and interviews, Spencer has maintained dignified discretion for decades. This established pattern of restraint means his decision to speak now carries exceptional weight. The specific timing, at age 60, approaching the age when mortality becomes more tangible, suggests a man taking stock of his historical responsibilities. There's a sense that Charles feels this may be his last significant opportunity to influence how his sister's story is understood by future generations, explains one royal historian. As the last living person with intimate knowledge of certain aspects of Diana's experience, he carries a unique burden of witness. For the Spencer family more broadly, this moment represents a reassertion of their historical significance after years of being somewhat overshadowed by Windsor narratives. The Spencers, with their distinguished lineage predating the Windsors' royal status, have maintained a dignified distance from royal dramas, while occasionally reminding the public of their important role in Diana's formation and legacy. Mental health experts note the powerful symbolism of Spencer's emotional display. For a man of his generation and background, public tears represent an extraordinary breach of established codes of aristocratic restraint. This visible emotion communicates something important about the gravity of what's being disclosed, notes one psychologist. It signals authenticity in a way that mere words might not. The legal implications of Spencer's disclosures remain unclear. While he has reportedly been careful to avoid specific accusations of criminality, his statements about surveillance and institutional resistance to Diana's independence potentially raise questions about proportionality and propriety of actions taken by various authorities. Legal experts suggest that the significant passage of time makes any formal investigation highly unlikely. For historians of the monarchy, Spencer's intervention represents a significant new perspective that must be integrated into scholarly understanding of the late 20th century royal narrative. These aren't claims from a peripheral figure or someone with an axe to grind, notes one royal biographer. This is testimony from someone at the absolute center of the Diana story, speaking after decades of careful reflection. As the impact of Spencer's emotional disclosures continues to reverberate, attention inevitably turns to whether this represents his final word, or the beginning of a more comprehensive account. Sources close to the Earl suggest he has maintained extensive diaries throughout his life, materials that would provide unprecedented insight into the private Diana few were privileged to know. What remains most poignant about this moment is Spencer's evident continuing grief for his sister, nearly 3 decades after her passing. The tears that preceded his revelations spoke volumes about the emotional cost of both maintaining silence and finally breaking it. For all the historical and institutional significance of his disclosures, this remains at heart a story about a brother who lost his sister under traumatic circumstances and has spent a lifetime processing that loss. For those who continue to hold Diana's memory sacred, Spencer's testimony offers both validation and fresh pain. The suggestion that her fears in those final months had more foundation than was acknowledged forces a reconsideration of narratives many had reluctantly accepted. It raises uncomfortable questions about whether more could have been done to protect her, had her concerns been taken more seriously. The Spencer family motto, "God defend the right," seems particularly poignant in light of these disclosures. After decades of restraint, Diana's brother appears to have concluded that defending what he sees as right requires speaking uncomfortable truths, regardless of institutional discomfort or potential backlash. It is a position entirely consistent with Diana's own evolution from shy royal bride to outspoken advocate willing to challenge powerful interests. As this extraordinary story continues to unfold, one truth remains self-evident. The legacy of Diana, Princess of Wales, continues to exert profound influence on both the monarchy and public consciousness nearly 3 decades after her death. Her brother's emotional testimony ensures that influence will extend to new generations who never experienced the Diana phenomenon firsthand. For Charles Spencer, now standing in his truth at 60, the path forward involves navigating the consequences of breaking his long silence. For the monarchy, it means absorbing yet another chapter in a story they have never fully controlled. And for William and Harry, it means integrating new perspectives into their understanding of the mother whose loss has shaped their lives in countless ways. In royal history, this may well be remembered as the moment when the carefully constructed official narrative about Diana's final years faced its most significant challenge, not from sensationalist outsiders, but from the tearful testimony of the brother who knew her best and loved her most. For an institution that has weathered centuries of crises through strategic adaptation, this moment calls for particular wisdom and restraint. The monarchy's greatest strength has always been its capacity to absorb new realities without fundamentally changing course. That resilience will once again be tested as it navigates the fallout from Spencer's unexpected moment of emotional truth-telling. Whatever comes next, the sight of Diana's brother finally giving voice to long-held concerns after decades of dignified silence has created an indelible new chapter in one of the most compelling and tragic royal stories of modern times. At 60, Charles Spencer has ensured that his sister's truth, as he understands it, will remain part of the historical record, alongside the more sanitized official accounts of a woman whose life and death continue to fascinate and move us nearly 3 decades after her passing.
And I have been so deeply moved and humbled by their truly remarkable courage and by their selfless capacity for forgiveness, despite all that they have suffered.
King Charles can finally share what happened is sure to make jaws drop. For decades, rumors and whispers surrounded the real story behind Charles and Diana's marriage, leaving fans with burning questions. Now, after years of regret and hidden truth, Charles is ready to spill the details that could change everything we thought we knew. From unexpected revelations to shocking confessions, nothing remains off limits in this tell-all.
And I also wanted to say how particularly moved and enormously comforted my children and I were, and indeed still are, by the public response to Diana's death.
Are you ready to hear the scandal that could rewrite entire royal history? Early spotlight on King Charles. From the moment he was born on November 14, 1948, King Charles lived in the public eye like few others. Being the first child of Queen Elizabeth II placed him in line for the British throne at just a few years old. As soon as his mother succeeded to the throne in 1952, Charles's every move became news. Journalists and photographers followed him constantly, capturing everything from his first steps to his school outings. This early attention brought both excitement and hardship. On one hand, Charles enjoyed privileges such as living in grand palaces and traveling around the world with his parents. On the other hand, the weight of future responsibility cast a long shadow. He could not simply play outside without a chaperone, or make casual friends without those friendships ending up in the papers. Knowing that he would eventually become king brought an expectation of perfect behavior and never-ending etiquette lessons. As a child, Charles took part in public events that most people never experience. He had to attend formal ceremonies, greet dignitaries, and smile for countless photographs. His parents were often busy with their own duties, so he sometimes felt distant from them. This early exposure to royal life taught him that leadership is more than just ribbon cutting and waving. It involves representing an entire nation and keeping up an image of respect and tradition. Yet Charles remained a curious young boy, eager to learn. He loved the outdoors, playing sports and exploring nature whenever possible. Despite all the ceremony around him, he tried to embrace any normal childhood moment he could find. This dual existence, being both a young heir and a child wanting freedom, shaped his perspective on duty and personal happiness. Over the years, the world watched him grow, picking apart every detail of his upbringing, from his choice of school to his friendships. While the spotlight was harsh, it also formed him into the resolute individual he would become. He learned to handle media pressure, stand by his values, and balance tradition with personal growth. Those early years in the public eye laid the groundwork for his eventual role as Britain's monarch. Challenging childhood. Although King Charles was born into privilege, his childhood was far from easy. In public, he seemed to have it all: a royal title, a future throne, and enrollment in prestigious schools. But behind the castle walls, he faced emotional hurdles that shaped who he is today. He often spoke of feeling somewhat isolated, since his parents, Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, had demanding schedules and many official duties. As a result, they were often away, leaving young Charles under the care of nannies and tutors. He once admitted that his parents could be both physically and emotionally distant. Growing up under such circumstances, he struggled to find genuine warmth and affection. Many times his reserved nature was misunderstood as aloofness, but it stemmed from a lack of open, playful interaction within his family. Like any sensitive child, he longed for approval and closeness. Additionally, constant media attention made it hard for him to form normal friendships. Classmates sometimes teased him, either because of his royal status or his gentle nature. While many assume being a prince meant an easy life, it actually invited extra scrutiny. Every quirk or emotion he showed sparked feedback from both peers and the wider public. This pressure taught him to shield his feelings, shaping the more guarded side of his personality that people would later observe. However, these hardships also contributed to his ability to empathize with others, since he knew how it felt to be lonely and misunderstood. Charles developed a softer side. In time, he became known for his desire to protect the environment and uplift charitable causes. There is a belief that his early emotional battles gave him a strong sense of compassion for the struggles of everyday people. Overcoming a challenging childhood was no small feat. Charles had to navigate formal expectations, media glare, and his own yearning for unconditional love. These factors fueled both his insecurities and his determination to do well by his future subjects. In many ways, his youthful trials served as stepping stones toward a more empathetic approach to leadership, highlighting how even a prince can grow through adversity. Gordonstoun School experience. Gordonstoun School became a defining chapter of King Charles's youth. Founded by German educator Kurt Hahn, the school was known for its strict discipline, outdoor challenges, and emphasis on self-reliance. Prince Philip, Charles's father, believed that Gordonstoun would make his son tougher, more independent, and ready for the demands of royal life. Though the school was among the most respected in the United Kingdom, it was also notorious for its rigorous routines. For young Charles, the transition was tough. He was a sensitive boy, more inclined toward quiet reflection than braving cold mornings and adventure drills. At Gordonstoun, students were expected to wake up early to take cold showers, keep their dormitories spotless, and participate in various sports. The school highlighted character growth through hardship, a principle that clashed with Charles's gentle manner. He found the days exhausting and sometimes felt overwhelmed by the physical demands and the teasing he faced from classmates. Still, he would later admit that his time at Gordonstoun shaped his resilience and helped him discover inner strengths. He learned how to handle criticism, adapt to unfamiliar settings, and rely on himself in challenging situations. In a 1975 interview, he reflected that the school taught him much about his own abilities, hinting that the difficulties sparked personal growth. He also said that his father's insistence on sending him there, though harsh at times, forced him to confront the real world in ways a pampered prince rarely would. Beyond discipline, Gordonstoun offered Charles opportunities in leadership. The school believed in giving senior students responsibility to oversee younger ones, which helped Charles practice guiding and supporting peers. He also found moments to appreciate nature, exploring the rugged landscape surrounding the campus. That closeness with nature might have nurtured his lifelong advocacy for environmental causes. Despite the strictness, he later expressed gratitude for his Gordonstoun experience. While he often joked that his father's choice of school was a harsh move for someone so sensitive, he ultimately acknowledged its benefits. By enduring trials of physical endurance, structure, and teamwork, Charles discovered personal qualities that would serve him well as he prepared for the responsibilities of a future king. University education king. Charles's choice to attend university was a defining moment that broke royal tradition and sparked debate within the British royal family. Typically, heirs to the throne were expected to enter military service straight after their formal schooling. However, Charles had other plans. After completing his A-levels at Gordonstoun, he announced his intent to pursue a degree at the University of Cambridge. Many in the royal circle were uneasy about this decision, fearing it might reflect poorly on him as a future monarch. Critics claimed it showed a lack of discipline and a desire to dodge the rigors of military life. Yet Charles stood firm, determined to prove that scholarship and service could go hand in hand. Despite the stir it caused, his time at Cambridge became an invaluable experience. He studied anthropology, archaeology, and history, eventually earning a second-class lower Bachelor of Arts, an achievement that made him the first British heir apparent to receive a university degree. During his studies, the media kept a close watch on his every move. Reports of Charles strolling through campus with classmates or attending social events always made headlines, reflecting a public keenly curious about how he would balance academic pursuits with his royal obligations. For Charles, this period was about more than attending lectures and writing essays. It allowed him a taste of relative independence, a chance to mingle with fellow students and immerse himself in intellectual debate. He engaged in discussions ranging from historical events to global challenges, broadening his cultural awareness. This exposure seemed to strengthen his worldview and shape his future philanthropic interests. In particular, experiencing life beyond palace walls helped him understand ordinary people's struggles, an understanding that would later influence his passion for charitable causes. Still, not everyone was so accepting of his academic adventure. Some family members felt that time spent away from official duties hindered his readiness for the crown. Yet, Charles's resolve only grew stronger in the face of doubt. Even as tension brewed within the royal household, he persisted, focusing on exams and forming friendships that would last for years. Military career. After earning his university degree, King Charles turned his attention to the military, a path many had expected him to follow from the start. Criticism had built up when he initially postponed his service, with voices suggesting he feared the harsh environment. Yet Charles was determined to prove otherwise. Early in his second year at Cambridge, he requested Royal Air Force training, surprising both the public and members of his family. This move signaled his readiness to take on physically and mentally demanding challenges. Charles began his preparatory instruction by studying a range of technical subjects, including aerodynamics, navigation, and aviation medicine. According to Air Chief Marshal Sir Richard Johns, who oversaw parts of Charles's training, the young man displayed remarkable concentration and a fierce determination to excel. While critics still questioned whether a sensitive prince could handle strict discipline, Charles's instructors saw a different side, a focused student who refused to fail. His military journey didn't end with the RAF. Charles soon embarked on a career in the Royal Navy, following in the footsteps of his father and grandfather. He took an accelerated course at Britannia Royal Naval College, quickly adjusting to life on ships, destroyers, and frigates. Over time, he served as a gunnery officer on the HMS Minerva and took on responsibilities that tested both his leadership and technical skills. His active involvement in real operations, such as monitoring a Soviet submarine, showcased his calm under pressure and willingness to adapt to life at sea. One highlight of Charles's service was his development as a pilot. He spent countless hours in the cockpit, perfecting maneuvers and formation flying. His dedication paid off when he earned the Double Diamond Trophy, marking him as one of the top pilots in his class. Eventually, Charles advanced to commanding officer of the minesweeper HMS Brownington, where he led a small crew through routine exercises and real missions involving leftover World War II ordnance. By December 1976, he concluded his active military career with the rank of commander. Though some once doubted his ability to withstand rigorous training, he left with a record that spoke volumes about his commitment and skill. In many ways, His time in uniform demonstrated that a future monarch could balance tradition with personal ambition, all while earning the respect of both royal and military circles. It was one more stepping stone on a journey that would soon lead him to a deeply complex chapter of life. Meeting Princess Diana. Meeting Princess Diana. The story of King Charles meeting Princess Diana often leads to mention of a shooting party hosted by Diana's older sister, Sarah. But according to Charles himself, their very first meeting happened in a less glamorous setting, a freshly plowed field. In that moment, Diana was a shy 16-year-old, while Charles was in his late 20s, dating Sarah. Despite the age gap and the prince's existing relationship, Diana captured Charles's attention. He was charmed by her youthful spirit and unique warmth, but with his eyes fixed on Sarah at the time, he barely acted on those feelings. Not long after, Charles joined Sarah for a ski trip, and their blossoming relationship was widely documented by the media, who celebrated them as a potential match. Behind the scenes, though, something else was happening. During a gathering at Sarah's invitation, Charles and Diana ended up talking in private. She led him on a brief tour of her home's gallery, and he found her kindness and energy irresistible, even if he couldn't publicly show it. Meanwhile, Diana was flattered by the prince's genuine interest. Yet the situation was far from simple. Sarah was still very much in the picture. In a surprising twist, Sarah herself ended up ending the relationship with Charles. She gave a frank interview to a magazine, boldly stating she was not in love with him, nor had any intention of marrying into the royal family. The public was stunned, considering how they had seemed happy together during their ski outings. Within months, Sarah married someone else, causing the media to pivot and focus on the evolving connection between Charles and Diana. With Sarah now out of the equation, Charles felt freer to pursue the younger sister who had captivated him from that first encounter. Still, there were unavoidable concerns about their 12-year age difference and Diana's limited experience with the public eye. Undeterred, they began seeing more of each other. The royal family, always conscious of appearances, kept a close watch on their dates, intrigued by the possibility that Diana might be a suitable bride for the future king. Marriage to Diana. The marriage of King Charles and Princess Diana was hailed as the event of the century, a dazzling ceremony watched by hundreds of millions worldwide. From the outside, it looked like the ultimate fairy tale. Royal pomp, horse-drawn carriages, and a stunning bride adored by onlookers everywhere she went. Yet beneath the grand displays of love and pageantry, trouble brewed. Diana, who was only 20 when she wed the future king, soon found that royal life was far more complex than she had imagined. One early warning sign came during their engagement interview. When asked if they were in love, Diana confidently said yes, but Charles replied, "Whatever in love means." His awkward response drew public concern, and privately, Diana admitted that it hurt. Troubles mounted further during their engagement when she discovered Charles had purchased a gift for his ex-girlfriend, Camilla Parker Bowles. Though Diana considered calling off the wedding, she pressed on, buoyed by her sister's support, but harboring deep fears about Charles's loyalty. Their wedding day remained a spectacle of joy, at least to the millions watching on television. Behind the scenes, however, cracks formed in the marriage almost immediately. Diana struggled with the relentless scrutiny of the press and the expectations placed on her as a royal wife. Charles, meanwhile, did little to hide his lingering attachment to Camilla, fueling Diana's worries and later her heartbreak. Over time, the emotional strain took a visible toll. Diana spoke openly about her feelings of inadequacy, and Charles, unsure how to handle her distress, seemed to drift further away. Eventually, the rumors of Charles's ongoing affair became impossible to ignore. Diana confronted Camilla directly, pleading for her to leave Charles alone. When that failed, the tension boiled over, leaving Diana feeling more isolated than ever. The media, hungry for drama, devoured every hint of conflict. The final blow arrived when intimate phone conversations between Charles and Camilla leaked to the press, exposing the true extent of their relationship. Faced with a scandal that rocked the monarchy, Charles publicly admitted the affair. A deeply wounded Diana, in turn, shared her side in televised interviews, famously remarking that, "There were 3 of us in this marriage." In 1992, they formally separated, finalizing their divorce in 1996. What began as a fairy tale had become a cautionary story of love, betrayal, and public intrusion, forever shaping how the world viewed the House of Windsor and the couple at its center. Infidelity and marital troubles. The marriage of King Charles and Princess Diana was once the world's favorite fairy tale, but underlying tensions and hidden affections soon cast a shadow over their union. Early on, Diana sensed Charles's lingering fondness for his former flame, Camilla Parker Bowles. Although Diana hoped that marriage and motherhood would draw Charles closer, those dreams gradually faded as Camilla remained in the picture. Hurt and confused, Diana confronted Charles about the gift he had bought Camilla shortly before their wedding, an omen that her new life might not be a peaceful one. Taking on royal duties brought more public attention, leaving little room for private resolutions. Diana tried to hold her marriage together despite feeling increasingly overshadowed by Camilla's presence. Pleas and direct confrontations proved fruitless. Charles, meanwhile, seemed torn between his sense of duty to Diana and his emotional history with Camilla. Eventually, their marital strains spilled over into media reports, fueling endless tabloid gossip. Every time Diana appeared at a public event looking downcast or teary-eyed, the press speculated about Charles's behavior and the cracks in their relationship. The unsustainable tension came to a head when intimate phone conversations between Charles and Camilla leaked, confirming beyond doubt that the prince had continued his affair. The tapes featured candid exchanges, revealing the depth of their emotional bond. As these calls became front-page news, any hope of salvaging the royal marriage dimmed. In a bid to manage the crisis, Charles sat down for a televised interview where he finally admitted to cheating on Diana. This public confession shattered the prince's carefully managed image of respectability and left Diana feeling betrayed on a global stage. Although the divorce was still months away, the emotional damage was done. Diana's heartbreak and Charles's public mea culpa generated an unending storm of media scrutiny. Many who had idolized Charles for his dedication to royal duty now questioned his character. Some sympathized with Diana, seeing her as a young woman thrust into an unforgiving spotlight and betrayed by her husband's continued closeness to Camilla. Others blamed both sides, arguing that royal life created pressures no marriage could endure. By the time legal separation became official, the couple's relationship had devolved into a series of painful headlines and regretful revelations. What started as a storybook wedding in front of nearly 1 billion onlookers turned into a cautionary tale of unresolved past relationships, public obsession, and the heavy toll of infidelity on even the most glamorous unions. Diana's struggles and legacy. When Diana entered the royal family, many saw her as the embodiment of a real-life Cinderella. A shy young nursery school assistant swept up in a dazzling romance with the future king. Yet almost from the start, she struggled beneath the intense spotlight and the rigid protocols of royal life. Her natural warmth often clashed with the formal reserve expected of a princess, and every misstep drew tabloid headlines. Over time, these pressures took a serious emotional toll, leaving her feeling isolated and unsure of whom to trust. Beyond her marital woes, Diana battled personal insecurities. She spoke candidly about her struggle with bulimia, which she traced directly to the emotional pain and self-doubt she experienced in her relationship with Charles. Whenever she felt anxious about an upcoming event or a perceived rejection, the pressure became unbearable. Her willingness to open up about bulimia shattered royal norms, exposing a frank vulnerability that endeared her to millions who recognized their own battles in her story. Despite these struggles, Diana found her own voice and sense of purpose through humanitarian work. Early on, she displayed a gift for connecting with people from all walks of life. Children facing critical illness, victims of poverty, and those living with HIV/AIDS all found a compassionate ally in Diana, who wasn't afraid to kneel down, embrace them, and show a human touch that broke centuries of royal formality. This empathy became a hallmark of her public persona, earning her the nickname, the People's Princess. Even as her marriage unraveled, Diana's global reputation soared, buoyed by her devotion to charitable causes. She visited hospitals, comforted the sick, and championed controversial topics like landmine clearance. Though her personal life remained fraught with heartbreak, Diana's work on behalf of the marginalized offered a sense of meaning. In telling the world about her own pain, She helped to break stigmas surrounding mental health while using her platform to shine a spotlight on overlooked communities. By the time she and Charles divorced, Diana's place in history had already been secured. Her tragic death in 1997 only cemented her status as a beloved icon whose struggles made her relatable and whose compassion inspired countless others. Today, her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, carry her legacy forward with their own charitable projects and public engagements. Through them and the countless lives she touched, Diana's spirit endures, reminding the world of the power in empathy, vulnerability, and the courage to speak one's truth.